Hi everybody, this is Kristen from A Voice and a View. Here to do another video, and I hope you're getting outside and enjoying the outdoors, enjoying this beautiful weather before winter comes through. It's beautiful here. What is it? It's in the 50s today. Gorgeous leaves. I'm loving the turning of the leaves. My favorite time of year. And today I am doing a video about the God frequency and doing all of this ascension work, this shadow work that I talk about, of healing your inner child, healing all of the wounds and trauma that's inside you, and what it can do for your healing journey. So important to do that work, because whatever you believe in the times we are in, because we are in Revelations, whatever you believe in, okay, this is a time to find God and connect. And I'm here to help you and show you how to do that. And if you believe God is somewhere outside of you, somewhere up in a cloud, something that happens to you after you pass on and go through a transformation, God is inside of you. God is not somewhere, yes, God is everywhere, but God is not somewhere outside of you. God is within you and wants you to realize that. And through all of my experiences, through doing all of this work that I've done on myself, for many, many years, reaching the God frequency is incredible. And for those of you that haven't heard a little of my story, what changed my life was that I was going through a dark night of the soul. And you can look that up to see what that means. But basically, it's a traumatic experience that happens in your life that wakes you up. And I was sitting on a log on the beach, concentrating on the sunrise, and the sun was red coming through the clouds. And it was like I was concentrating on the sun, trying to get it to come through the clouds, and all of a sudden an eye came through. An eye opened, the clouds started moving around, and the other eye opened, and then a nose, and then a mouth formed. And this was a 3D image. It was a face. And the eyes were of fire. And that's what changed my journey. That's what changed my life. I did a 360 in the way I looked at life, because I knew there was something more that I wasn't seeing. Something, and I know it was God, but something was hidden from me and I didn't know what it was. And I was being shown that there was more that I wasn't seeing. And yeah, that day changed my life. And all of a sudden I became obsessed with information. I wanted to learn everything. I wanted to learn all different subjects. And everybody around me noticed it, that I was obsessed with learning information. I didn't want to go anywhere, see anybody. I wanted to be alone. I wanted to be in that space of learning. And around that time, I started becoming obsessed with gardening and flowers and plants, working in my yard. I was taking pictures earlier in the day during sunrise. taking pictures, and it was like God was leading me to see what I needed to see in my pictures. He was showing me magical things, things that I never paid attention to before, like how the sunlight hits a leaf, ripples on the water, just really beautiful things that I never really paid attention to. So I became obsessed with taking pictures as well. And I would post them every morning on this page. And I did it for many years. But through this experience, and there's so much to tell on that, more and more magical things started happening, in my view. I became very close to animals, and they would be attracted to me. I had birds flying close to me or landing on me. And I've mentioned this a few times in some of my videos, but for those who haven't heard some of my stories, I'm just kind of giving a recap here for a little bit. And I was always scared of bees after being stung by a bumblebee, running barefoot on the ground, and all of a sudden I wasn't scared of bees anymore, and they were landing on me, and it was like I could communicate. It's like we had a collaboration. It was almost like a respect thing. But they would land on me, and they were attracted to my energy. And the higher you go in frequency with this journey, you start realizing that things become attracted to you. Animals, little kids, babies, insects, they're attracted to your energy because you are at a higher frequency. And when you go through and do the shadow work, healing your inner child, your trauma, you heal yourself from the inside out through opening up your chakras, meditation, exercise, diet. There's so many different things that you can do to raise your frequency, but when you do all of these things, and I wanted to mention again, using no fluoride. And guys, I love my dentists. Don't get me wrong. But in my own experience, taking out fluoride, it decalcifies your pineal gland, which is further behind here in your forehead. But that's basically your Wi-Fi signal to God. That's your high frequency. Your third eye, and you can look up that stuff as well. But when you do all this, and you especially decalcify your pineal gland, you're going to start having these magical experiences. And the further you go with it, and the more things you do, and do all this research on your own, guys. I'm telling you what I've experienced in my own journey. Yours may be different, but I know a lot of people are doing a lot of the same things, and they're having the same experiences. But the more work you do on yourself and the layers that come off of trauma, everything's going to change in your world, internally and externally. I talk about how I used to be an emotional eater, and I used to weigh, gosh, at my highest, I think I weighed close to 260, guys. And now I'm down to, I don't know, somewhere around 205 or something. But I'm tall. But yeah, you lose your appetite through this journey because you don't feel the weight of so much trauma in your life, and all this stuff comes off of you. But you start wanting to exercise because exercise helps you detox. It helps you in so many ways. But so just to give you a little background with that information, but I wanted to mention some of my experiences that I have and what you can, do for yourself. And hopefully you go on this journey, or hopefully you already are with my videos, but the more work you do on yourself, the more information you research, the more you become aware of how powerful you are, because you are a child of God, and God is within you and not somewhere, up in a cloud. God is energy. God is the universe, and everything is energy. And when you realize that God is energy and balance, and everything, that God works in every way through you, okay? Once you start realizing that, you're going to start seeing God in everything. God's original creations in nature. And you're going to start being attracted to so many of those things, and seeing the bigger picture, and seeing the magic in the world that so many, including me, because for so many years didn't see or can't see. We get so busy in our lives, going to work and coming home, and being in the opposite energy than being in nature and seeing God's creations and what we were originally meant to live in. That we forget who we are. We forget where we came from. We forget the life that God originally wanted for us. And so when you go through this journey and you start realizing and waking up that nature talks to you in all different ways, through the animals. I mean, it's if I told you all the experiences that I've had, the magical experiences that I experience, after I meditate, I do, I've done light baths before, and I can explain that a little bit. But it's incredible. So yeah, I'll give you some experiences that I've had. I'm trying to think where to start here. I remember one time I was down by a river, and all of a sudden I was swarmed with not fireflies, dragonflies. Oh my gosh. Yeah, they started circling me, and there had to be at least 40 or 50 of them. But they were circling all around me, zipping back and forth in front of me, and it was like we could communicate. And it was so magical. I've had, like I said, bees land on me. I can communicate with like chipmunks and squirrels, and I, kind of talk to them, and they come towards me, and, I could be in my car and I'll just be kind of talking to them, and they'll come over and they'll lift up on their hind legs and just be looking at me, and like they're fascinated with me. And many of you have heard my stories about Halo, the albino doe that used to be around the house that I used to live in. And 2 Easter Sundays in a row, I saw her, and she was so magical, just beautiful and elegant and so graceful. And I would see her all the time. But 2 Easter Sundays in a row, I saw her. And this was when I was taking pictures. But yeah, what a trip, you know. And I remembered the year before when I saw her, and then I was on my way home that day and saw her again the next year on Easter Sunday. So that was amazing. But you know, it's like I can see water move in a different way. And you know, the gold and the colors on the water, and you know, diamonds, you know, it looks like diamonds on the water. Birds that fly like not in slow motion, but it's almost like that. But you see more of their movements, and it's magical. It is. I've had birds fly right in front of my face or right on the side of my face. I've had, you know, I've mentioned in the past as well, like bumblebees will warn me. They'll fly right in front of my face when I'm given a warning. Or they'll fly over my phone because I'm looking at my phone. You know, they're trying to get my attention. In one of my past videos, I mentioned about the beehive, that I was going to lift up one of my huge pots. Didn't realize there was a beehive underneath it. And this bumblebee came flying by my phone, you know, well, it was down by my lower area, flying upward towards my face and whatever. It was trying to warn me about the beehive. And so that was a different experience. So yeah, I mentioned that in one of my videos. But yeah, it's like I look at everything so differently. And you know, like raindrops on leaves, you know, I just see like magic in everything. And this is gonna sound a trip, guys, but the best way I can describe it, there was a movie, and I can't remember what movie it was, but someone had passed away in the movie, and this tree started swaying back and forth, right? And the person was almost like getting a message from that person that had passed on, like it was a goodbye, right? They were kind of waving. The tree was waving back and forth, and the wind came by and started moving the leaves, but I can't remember what movie that was. But anyways, I will have like like leaves, like a branch of leaves like waving at me. And the rest of the bush or the tree won't be moving. And it'll be just like this branch of leaves that will be, oh my gosh, and I just got a confirmation, guys, because this leaf hit my window. But leaves will wave at me. I know it sounds crazy, but it'll be doing this. It'll, you know, and the whole little tree or bush won't be moving, but it'll be waving at me. And I've had this a few times, and actually it happened to me when I was at the beach yesterday, when I was meditating, and I noticed it was happening. And I know this sounds so bizarre, but it's like nature speaks to you when you have that connection with that high frequency. And there's so many different things that you notice when you're out in nature. And so here's another one. I was wading in the water. I was probably almost up to my knees in the water during a sunrise, and the sun started coming up, and all of a sudden, well, the sun was like an orangish color, and all of a sudden it was like this streak of orange crosses appeared on the water, you know, where the sunrise would glow on the water, would reflect on the water. But it was like glowing crosses. Okay. And actually, I got a couple pictures of it, and I posted them years ago. But I remember that specific moment because it was like, wow, it was incredible. But it was like they were sparkling, glowing, amazing. And Spirit, and many of you that haven't seen my videos, I'm starting to have these abilities of how do you explain that? Being on a high frequency and being able to communicate, with the spiritual realm. And all these abilities that are coming online for me. And Spirit has told me that I've healed animals before. And I know in a few different cases, it's happened with a couple birds. One bird hit my window, my outside window at my last residence. And I heard it hit the window, and I went outside, and it wasn't moving, it was just there. And I picked it up and was talking to it, trying to touch it, kind of pet it. And it's, it seemed like that's what I did. Now, I don't know which way you could look at that. It could have just stunned it. But I've been told that's what I've done. And I know with a neighbor's dog that was really sick. That was, I thought it was on its way out. And I went over and I was petting it and talking to it. And the next day, the dog was, so much better. And moving around and acting normal. And so I don't know. But Spirit's told me that I've healed some animals. There's so many different amazing experiences that I've had. But yeah, being out in nature has really given me a different view of life and how I look at everything. And God leads my eyes to things that I need to see. In all aspects. But I'll be sent messages, by my angels. I'll look up to a sign just out of the blue and it'll say something. And I know it'll relate to something I was thinking about or a situation I was dealing with. But it's just an incredible, magical frequency that you can attain. You can do it yourself. You just have to do the work. And I know this is part of my purpose here. And many of you may think that this is just all talk. Well, you haven't lived my life. You haven't seen the things that I've experienced, and a lot of the things that are being shown to me that I never realized about myself, My psychic abilities that are coming online. I had no idea that I even had these abilities most of my life. I mean, gosh, I'm 52 now. I know my mom had some abilities when I was younger. But yeah, all these things are happening to me, and but I know that, like I said, it's part of my purpose of being here, is to show you that you are able to get to this point. And God wants me to show you that there is another way to get you out of your depression, out of your every day-to-day life, and show you a different world. Show you that there is magic everywhere you look. But you got to do the work. You got to do this inner work and heal yourself and open up your chakras and realize that decalcifying your pineal gland, like I said, it's your Wi-Fi signal. But doing all of these things that I've been trying to help you with, to show you that there is another a way of looking at life. That we're not just here to exist and to do the same things every single day. We're here to enjoy life and to create. Because we are powerful creators. We are children of God. We are a part of the heavenly realm. But going through life, not paying attention to God and not paying attention to the world around us, except for, doing the same old every day, you're not going to experience what you can experience on that magical level. And gosh, for so many years I was, stuck. I was doing the same things day after day after day, and going through a lot of trauma. And actually that trauma helped me awaken. God was helping me awaken. And it's part of what you have to go through. You experience trauma in your life, and that's to help wake you up. It's kind of like it's almost like going through a healing of your broken heart, right? And that's a lot of what it is. But since I've started this journey, I look at things so differently. And like before I had a home with a, washer and dryer to do my laundry, and now after moving, I have totally reversed into going to a laundromat. And 10 o'clock at night, and I'm looking at a vending machine with a Payday staring at me, and an arcade game there, and and it's not like I look at that as a bad thing. It's change. It's a different lifestyle. It's definitely different than what I was doing before. But I don't look at it as a bad thing. I'm one to not care about keeping up with the Joneses. I don't care. My life is all about new experiences. It's about enjoying life, even if there's hardship, even if it's a little bit harder. I still look at everything as being a lesson, as a good experience, as a learning experience, and having fun with it. You know, just the other day, went and got pizza at like 10 o'clock at night, and there was a Miss Pac-Man arcade game in there, and I haven't played Miss Pac-Man, gosh, in like 40 years, probably. So I walked in there and I saw it and I got all excited. So I'm playing Miss Pac-Man, and I was getting loud, and because I used to be good at Atari games. Atari came out when I was young, and I loved Pac-Man, and so I'm playing this game and being loud, and my kid was like, "Mom," she got so embarrassed, but I'm like, I don't care what people think. That's one thing that you attain when you go through this process is authenticity. You learn to be yourself, and you don't care what people think, because they haven't been in your shoes. They haven't experienced what you've experienced. And being in this energy, this higher frequency, you learn to find your inner child again. You lose all that crap that you've accumulated on your body, inside and out, and it's like you return to that childlike state. When a little child, well, when they're young, as a little kid, you look at everything as new, as magical, and kids can talk to God when they're young, guys. If they have a invisible friend, or they talk to an invisible friend, that's God, guys. They're your spirit guides. That's your angels. They can communicate. And it's almost like going back to that state. You find that inner child again, that finds magic in everything, that finds the new. And you discover all of these things that have been hidden from you. You discover life in a new way, or what it's supposed to be like, and not what's been covered up, not what's been hidden from you. It's just a different. It's hard to describe, but at 52 years old, I am probably the happiest I've ever been. Even if I have gone through hell and back, guys. Because I have. My whole life. And God woke me up and wanted to show me a life that I should have had, a life that I should have experienced and didn't. And, is telling me that this is, like I said, this is part of my purpose. I went through this journey not realizing that I was even going on a journey. I started this over probably 10 years ago. I had no idea that I was even on this awakening journey. It just kind of happened. Just by things that I was learning and applying and doing on my own, and going through my own experiences, and having all of these magical things happen to me that, most people would probably be like, what? What are you on? Are you on something? So it was very complicated, because I would try to tell people what was happening to me and they wouldn't believe me. And they didn't want to listen to me because they just thought, I don't know what they were thinking, but they just didn't believe me. But they weren't doing the work. They weren't, applying things that I was learning and being shown by Spirit, by God, to help elevate my frequency. And like I said, when you do that, your whole world changes and you look at everything differently. And you realize there's a whole world within a world that is happening around you. And you just have to wake up enough to be able to see it and experience it. And, through all of this shadow work and, forgiving yourself, forgiving others, and I know I've mentioned that in other videos about forgiveness, which is a big part of this process. Forgive those, for they know not what they do. It's a big part of this process. But through that forgiveness, that doesn't mean that you let people walk all over you. You forgive them for yourself. And that doesn't mean that you have to have them around you anymore. It was a part of the lessons that you needed to learn. Everything is a lesson. We're here to learn lessons and to understand about light and dark and shadows. The light and dark work back and forth. Karma and lessons, they both work together. But yeah, forgiveness is very important because it takes that energy, that hurtful energy off of you, that heavy energy. And once you come to a state of forgiveness, you will feel a lot lighter. And then your body can accumulate more good energy and expand. And your frequency can attain a higher level, once you start going through all these processes. But yeah, forgiveness doesn't mean that that you have to go through, forgiveness basically means you forgive that person, but that doesn't mean you want them back in your life again. Okay? It means to bring in new people. It means to find your soul tribe. The people that God wants around you, the people that God wants for you in your life. So anyways, I went on a little rant there, but like I said, I know that this is part of my purpose here. I've been told, Spirit has told me that this is part of my mission here, is to help you understand about ascension and, doing all of these things to help raise your frequency and to go through this ascension process. And this is the first time, instead of passing on, guys, instead of passing on and transforming and ascending that way, okay, this is the first time that we are going through an ascension while we're in the body, while we're still here. Which sounds incredible. It sounds crazy. I get it. But going through this process, I know that is true. And there's a bee flying right by my window, guys. There's a confirmation again. So yeah. So I'm here to help you understand about this stuff, to raise your frequency, to get you out of those lower chakra energies. Okay, because being in those lower chakras, which is the devil energy, you're going to be manipulated. You're going to be lied to. You're going to be cheated on. You're going to be, there's so many things that, being in those lower frequencies, they will keep you they'll keep you in a state of being manipulated, and because you're working more from your ego and not your heart, and your decisions might not be your own. And I can go into that as well, but once you start reaching the higher frequencies, going through your heart chakra and, here on up, you're going to start seeing things from a higher view where you can control your actions more. And it's like you have a higher view of things happening around you, and you're not going to be able to be manipulated and controlled and basically being manipulated and lied on and controlled. But not just that, but you will also attain the higher frequencies of being happier, of seeing magical things happen around you, seeing a different world that you didn't realize was there. Coming back to that childlike state of mind where everything is magical and new, where you can connect with your angels and your guides and ancestors and the higher realms. It's incredible, guys, but it is attainable. I'm a living experience. This stuff happens to me. Well, I mean, I'm there all the time, but when I meditate and when I do more of the healing work, and it's magical. It's more magical when I put myself in that state of mind. I mentioned yesterday after I meditated that eagle flew by me. I've been in a few different car accidents in my lifetime, but a couple in the last, I would say, 3 weeks, where I know my angels were protecting me. I had an eagle fly by me as well on the Mackinac Bridge after I almost got sandwiched by a semi. That was confirmation for me I was being protected. And animals are, they work in the spirit realm. You can look up that information as well. But yeah, animals they communicate with you in different ways for protection or, whatever. But all of these things are attainable if you do the work. But nobody is going to do it for you. You have to do it on your own. Because, with that saying, I gotta think for a second here. The truth cannot be told. It must be realized. Okay, so even if I mention all of these things to you, you're not going to believe it unless you do the work yourself, unless you experience it yourself. So, I can talk all day long, and you might want to believe me, but until you look up information on your own and do it yourself, and you experience it, then you'll believe it. But it's up to you. I mean, we have free will here, and your journey is your journey, and I have my own. But every video I do, I'm trying to help you realize that there is a different frequency that you can attain through doing this work. And you don't have to stay in that state of mind where you're depressed all the time. Even though depression is a good thing once in a while, deep rest, deep rest, because your body needs that once in a while, as long as you don't stay in that frame of mind all the time. But, you got to do the work for yourself. And I really hope you do. I mean, I'm here to show you that it is attainable and that you can do all of these things and have these magical experiences like I do and get out of those the frame of mind that stays in the lower frequencies where you're just existing. There is life again through this work and experiencing God the way God wanted us to see him, through our eyes, through this work, through the shadow work, through these doing this work with our chakras and attaining these frequencies, these God frequencies, okay? Attaining the God frequency, you're going to experience so much happiness, so much joy in your life, and you're going to attract abundance, and you're going to attract everything to you, okay? Because when you do go through this process, you will attract abundance. You will attract happiness, you will attract love, you will attract anything you want to attract. You can attract into your life. You can manifest in your life. You are a powerful creator, and you have the abilities in your body. You do, because you're a child of God. You have those abilities. So this was a longer video, guys, and I'm gonna have to make a list on things that have happened to me over the years on being on the higher frequencies and the magical things that have happened to me in the last how many years, because it's incredible. You can communicate with higher realms when you go through this work, and you have a connection with God, and go through not just the shadow work, but working on your chakras, meditating, all of these things. You can attain a better life for yourself and get out of this trance. Get out of all of this trauma that we've all been put through for so many years. Especially that 6-letter word, COVID. Get out of that trance state of mind and realize that you can attain so much more for yourself and manifest greatness in your life and be so much happier and create a beautiful life for yourself, and realize that just this everyday stuff is not all there is. There is more. As long as you can believe it, do the work, and you will see the results. Okay, guys, that's it. I'm at almost 50 minutes today. So I hope you have a beautiful day. And, if you guys are doing some of this work, and you're seeing some results, drop a comment. I'd love to hear about it. But, oh, and then really quick, when somebody had dropped a comment about what I had talked about yesterday about ascension symptoms. And a lot of the ascension symptoms I had were from, years ago. So trying to remember all the symptoms during a video, I missed some, but so I'll just mention them here really quick. But yes, you are going to have back pain. You're going to have sweating. You're going to, the hot and cold. You're going to go through that as well. Joint pain. So yeah, those were a few that I missed in the video yesterday. But everybody, has their own experiences. So you could be going through other things as well. Other symptoms. But look them up. And, there's a lot of different social media platforms that cover this stuff. So you can look that up. If you're having a certain symptom, just check it out for yourself. And that falls under, doing your own research so that everything that's entailed in this journey on your own. That'll help you believe it. So, okay, guys, that's it. So I hope you have a beautiful day. And until next time, this is Kristen from A Voice and a View. Have a great day, guys. Love you all. Peace, love, and light. Bye.